Hey everyone, it's Elaine. I am back again with another video. This one is more of a mental health video. I'm discussing the parallels or the similarities between a high control religion and then an abusive domestic violence relationship. I just want to preface by saying that in graduate school, I studied domestic violence. My thesis was on unraveling the narratives of Filipinas who have experienced intimate partner violence. So I do have knowledge in this capacity. And, when I was unraveling my own religious trauma, I realized there's a lot of similarities between a high control cult like religion and an abusive relationship. And really, what it comes down to, like the foundation of it, is power and control. And this exists within a lot of patriarchal hierarchical, I should say, systems where there's a leader and then they have followers. So the first parallel or similarity I wanted to talk about between a high control religion and a cult-like religion, for instance, the INC, which I was born into, and an abusive relationship is oppressive practices or behavior. And I want to say that usually when people think of an abusive relationship, they typically think of physical abuse, but domestic violence and abuse can also consist of emotional abuse and emotional manipulation, as well as financial abuse, and it can exist on a spectrum. So, for instance, with an oppressive practice or behavior, one would be telling your partner where they can go, what they can wear, if they can wear makeup, and so limiting your partner's autonomy. And in a high control religion, that happens often where they tell you what you can't do, what you can wear, and sometimes they even monitor these behaviors or these actions, right? So in the INC, I know that a lot of the times they don't allow you to have alcohol at weddings. They forbid you from dating non-members, which is actually a form of isolation and control. And comparable to like an abusive relationship, your partner, the one that's typically exhibiting the power, will say something like, "Oh, I don't want you hanging out with your coworkers after a certain amount of time. I don't want you wearing makeup. I don't want you wearing anything provocative." And usually that stems from a deep sense of fear, which is a whole other topic I can go on about. But that's a parallel. And it can veer into very abusive territory when people start shaming and then like, "Oh, look at you, you know, you're such a this and that," name calling, that is part of emotional abuse. Another parallel I wanted to talk about, and this is really hard to detect, but it happens a lot, is invalidation, deflection, and minimization. And I'll give an example. So say you're dating someone and your partner, you've noticed these behaviors that you don't like that are hurting you. And you bring it up to your partner and you're like, I've just really been feeling hurt when you do these things to me and I just don't feel good. And they might say like, "Well, you just don't love me enough," or they make you feel guilty. Or they might say something like, "Oh, get over it. You complain so much. Like, you should be grateful that I'm even with you." So those are shaming statements meant to make the victim feel bad. And then if that continually happens, the victim will typically not say anything anymore because they don't want to get invalidated for having feelings. And that happens a lot in high control religions as well. So an example would be if I were to tell, a minister in the Iglesia Ni Cristo, like, "I'm feeling this way and, I just don't think it's fair that I have to convince my partner to convert for me, and then my mom gets punished by losing her title as a deaconess. I just don't think it's fair." You might hear some backlash like, "Well, I just don't think you have enough faith. I don't think you're praying enough. Like, why don't you ask God to?" Or they might say something like, like, just basically anything to make you feel guilty, to like pull on those guilty strings to make you question your reality. Like, so as humans, we experience many emotions, and when those emotions are deflected, minimized, invalidated, pushed aside, those emotions will be internalized, and it can cause a lot of mental health issues. It can cause a lot of anxiety inside. And when you repress those emotions, it can lead to depression, and it could just make you feel like your voice doesn't matter, and when your voice really does matter. And instead of having a collaborative exchange with authority members or high leaders in the church, most of the time there is no collaboration. It's, this is what I say, this is what goes. It's either you like it or not. It's either you're a member or you're not. It's very black and white. There's no in between. It's this or that. And that can cause a lot of conflict within a person's mind and their soul and their heart, and it has a lot of detrimental health effects as well. And another one that's pretty common between, another parallel would be financial abuse in a partnership, a romantic relationship, and it also happens within high control religions. So an example would be your partner managing all the finances, taking care of your finances to the point where they're not allowing you to spend money, or they're telling you how you can spend your money. There's a difference between collaboration between two romantic partners and then to the point where they're not allowing you to like work, and they're telling you how many hours you can work or this and that. There's a healthy exchange, and then there's like an unhealthy, abusive exchange of power. And that can happen in the church a lot too, when they tell you how much money you need to, a high control religion, they tell you how much money that you can contribute or you have to contribute. And if you don't contribute, then you're not praising God, you're not a faithful member. So those are some examples. And if anything from these examples, it was meant for everyone to think about, everyone that watches my videos or has come across my videos, to really think about the comparison and how abuse can exist within, a romantic relationship, and it can also exist within a high control religion and a cult. And I recognize that abuse or domestic violence isn't really recognized in some cultures. Like, it can be very normalized in some cultures where like hitting and invalidation is so normalized that it's just that's just how things go, and no one really questions it. And I think that's the tragic part about it. And if any of you have noticed any similarities between an abusive relationship and a high control religion like the Iglesia Ni Cristo, this isn't exclusive to the Iglesia Ni Cristo. It happens in a lot of religions. But if you notice any parallels or similarities, I'd love to know about your experience, and maybe if you feel comfortable enough to maybe write a comment below or share something that you've observed. And I feel really passionate about this topic because I feel like, there's a lot of injustice that happens, and it needs to be rectified in some way. And if I can educate a little bit, and share my research, maybe it could help someone think of things in a way they've never thought of before. So I hope you guys enjoyed this mental health video. If you have any comments, questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section, and I'll see you next time. Bye.